Hello. Thank you everyone for coming. It's the tail end of a very, very long week, so we really appreciate the fact that you're here until the bitter end with us. We're here today to talk about the rise of the Asian edition, a very particular category of magazine that's appeared in the very recent past, really the last few years. We're seeing the big international art publishers looking towards China and to the region as a whole. So we're here today with many of the publishers, editors of these groups to figure out what's happening. My name is Robin. I edit the magazine Leap, which is in the very awkward position this year of being the grandfather of the panel for the first time ever. Usually we're the red-headed stepchild. So a real pleasure to be here with colleagues from across the world. And to hear a little bit more about what they're doing. We are a bilingual, bi-monthly Chinese-English magazine published out of Beijing. I'll talk a little bit about our program, but I'm mostly here to help kind of facilitate questions about how these other publications are approaching their work in the region. So I'm going to throw out a couple really basic questions, and then I hope you can first introduce yourself, your magazine, your role there, and what you've been doing with your Asian edition, whatever you might call that. So, BT just declared bankruptcy last week. Randian just did their first paper edition. Kaleidoscope just did their first paper edition in Asia. What the hell are you all thinking? Why are you getting into this business? Why are you still publishing now? Why the international edition? What's happening? Alessio, can you kick us off?
I start? Okay. Thank you, Robin, for the introduction, and thank you, Art Basel, for inviting us. That's a wonderful theme, of course, for us. And my name is Alessio Ascari, and I am the founder and the editor-in-chief of Kaleidoscope. So what Kaleidoscope is? Kaleidoscope, it's a young media group based in Milano. It was founded in 2009, so it's almost 5 years now. I don't know if it's young or we can consider it young. Like a young, okay. So basically, the group, it's composed by two publications, two titles, an international edition, Kaleidoscope, which is mainly distributed in Europe and in the US, in all our capitals or around these two continents. And the magazine is, pretty established now. We decided a year ago, after we did like a special issue of Kaleidoscope International devoted to Asian art, to start a new publication, which is called Kaleidoscope Asia. Kaleidoscope Asia was launched in late January, so a couple of months ago, and is it working? Yes, it's working. So a couple of months ago, and it's basically the same thing, but devoted 90%, 95% to contemporary art and culture from the Asia-Pacific region. We launched the magazine in Singapore because the company is also based there in Singapore. It's made in partnership with a Shanghai-based organization which is called Art of Asia, and it's sponsored by a fashion group which is called Valley Retail, which is basically financing the startup of the Kaleidoscope Asia thing. And so we have these two titles that are completely different in terms of content, but I think that they share the same, let's say, DNA, the same philosophy, the same attitude. So what we're trying to do, and I'm speaking of the Kaleidoscope Motherboard Edition and the Kaleidoscope Asian edition, they both, I think, are trying to playing this tricky game, which is, I don't know how to say, being authoritative and credible for the inner circle of art professional, but at the same time being accessible, open, and sexy for a broader audience of creative people from all fields. So it's basically like an institution, let's say. So you have to deal with the art critics, with the artists, but at the same time on Sunday you have to deal with the grandma visiting the museum with their nephews. And so that's also what we are trying to do with the Asian edition. And that's it, more or less. I don't know, maybe we
I
can...
think that's a great introduction to start with, and
yeah.
then maybe everyone just take 2-3 minutes to really do a real quick rundown. What's the core mission of your publication? And then we can get into the why are you doing what you're doing now after that.
So I'm Daniel Ho, the editor-in-chief of Randian and also co-founder of Randian. Randian is basically started as a website, online art magazine, and also online platform in Shanghai. And over the last, I guess, 4 or 5 years, we've been, reporting and talking about art elsewhere, like, of course, Beijing, Hong Kong, to a certain degree, other cities like Singapore, or even, New York and elsewhere. Well, basically, I guess we're bilingual, Chinese, English, and our team is very bilingual as well. And much like Leap, I guess a lot of our mission is like, being a bridge between two worlds, trying to really get sort of certain ideas and how people think about art in China, and making sure it's accessible, in English, and also being online means we can disseminate this, pretty rapidly around the world, in a way that, we don't have to be concerned with so much of the physical distribution. So, which makes it an odd choice this year for us to have chosen to create actually a print edition. We've decided that. It was actually a really quick decision. We did everything really, really quickly. Partly because many people have kept on mentioning that why don't we do something like that? And we said, why not? It's also fun. It's fun. It's a really different process doing it in print. So I guess we'll think of different projects in the future. It's going to be more like a book kind of idea. It won't necessarily be completely, regular. So I don't know.
So if Kaleidoscope is sexy enough for both people on the edge of art and also grandmas to get into, what's the core value of Randian?
I think the core value of Randian is definitely it's not sexy. Well, we try to get, I think we have a bit more of some of our members, some of our teams have more of an art historical slant. We encourage that maybe in more in our texts a bit more. I'm not sure we're always getting there, but I think a more art historical slant. We try to do more, involved pieces, which, is a bit odd online. People also like to read it, in paper. So I think that's probably the...
Sure, fair enough. So if you could introduce all 3 of your editions, Japanese, Chinese, both Chinese and English, and the differences between them maybe.
And I'm going to speak in Japanese. Is it okay? Bijutsu Techo is a Japanese magazine established in 1948. Even in Asia, it should be one of the magazines with a long history. Is it okay? We publish it in Japan only in Japanese because contemporary art is more a global art. So we would like also would like to compete in the global art magazine as well. So now we are going to publish a Chinese version and an English version in cooperate with a Hong Kong publisher. And when we publish it in Japan, it's not only contemporary art, but also with subcultures, animation and manga, and then also we have this in our content. But this one, Bijutsu Techo International, we are going to focus it more and more on contemporary art in our editorial. And because of this, for this event, we are going to issue our first issue, and then in autumn we are going to have our second issue, and later on it will be bi-monthly. It will be published every other month. In this international version, art scene, it is more focused on American and also European market. But now you can see a very vibrating Asian art market, and then we would like to contribute in the value, and then hopefully we can make it into a more new value in the Asian market as well.
So I think the big question for right now is why has all of this happened in such a small space? What's happening in the market, both the media market and maybe the art world in Asia, that everyone is coming out with the Asian edition? Unfortunately, our colleagues from Art Review Asia couldn't make it today. They had to go to Shanghai. Similarly, our colleagues from the art newspaper China had to fly to New York yesterday. So we're slightly more constricted, but why have these kind of 5 publications all decided to come out with kind of either English or English-Chinese or Chinese versions of the magazines at this point? What went into your decision? What made you choose kind of this year as the year?
As I said before, we started with a kind of a pilot edition like a couple of years ago, like a special edition devoted to Asian art of Kaleidoscope International, and the reception was very, very good. At the same time, running a magazine, Kaleidoscope Motherboard Edition, we tried and try to feature also artists coming from different parts of the world. But it's impossible to give visibility, enough visibility to all what's happening here. So we decided that was the right moment to launch a magazine that was like 100% dedicated to this part of the world, because so much things are happening right now. So we feel that there is like a great energy going on, and that was the right moment. And on the other hand, we found the funding, the money to do that. So that was like a good combination of things, let's say.
Can you also speak maybe to the media market in terms of what are you expecting to find with your Asia edition in terms of readers, advertisers?
I mean, Kaleidoscope, as you can see from both the international and the first pilot issue of the Asian edition, it's, as I said before, it's a magazine that tries to speak to a broader audience of creative people. So there are like fashion brands involved as advertisers. There are a lot of premium like contemporary museum and galleries, etc. And in terms of distribution, it's still the beginning, but we're like working with great distributors. So the idea right now, the magazine, it's a biannual magazine and bilingual, so it's English and Chinese. But we hopefully it's going to be quarterly in 2016, so the reach of the magazine will expand rapidly. So yeah.
Daniel, the print version of Randian is almost more like a scholarly journal. It's
Yeah.
very serious in,
Yeah.
in that way. Can you tell us why you wanted to get involved with this print culture and why you wanted to get involved with this kind of more visual sort of medium?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in many ways, okay, so first of all, Randian is actually based, kind of in Hong Kong and Shanghai, so we're not really doing an Asian edition, we're doing a print edition. And the print edition, I mean, in many ways, I think what we're coming from originally is, I think many artists in China or around the world can easily visit and see visual forms, in different biennales, in different, Kunsthalles in Europe or New York. And in some ways, they can probably assimilate a lot of the visual forms they see by, visiting. And I'm reminded that, in many ways, this is not so easy with, for example, art criticism or art history. This is not something that, you can just spend 5 days in Venice and absorb it, I mean, to a greater extent, you can do it with visual arts and visual forms, not with the interesting, misinterpretations that happen. So I guess what we really wanted to do is sort of do a little bit more of that work of, translation, of bridging, sort of, hopefully, art critics from, let's say, important Western artistic centers, and as well as in China. And it really is both ways. I mean, we do have English writers in different places being translated into Chinese, and Chinese people often sometimes with very different historical narratives or, narratives of art history or whatever, being translated into English. So I think that was always part of our, mandate for the project that we've embarked on. As for print, I guess, it partly is a lot of this kind of long form stuff, either if it's, interview format or if it's a more serious review or, a particular analysis or profile. I guess for many people, this is a more desirable to read in paper, even though I myself am perfectly fine with reading it online, but it's just, I think certain people do really much prefer that. And of course, there is something nice with the physicality and the materiality of something you can hold,
I think what's becoming beautiful now is this sheer variety of magazines that we're seeing, where you have something that's very much a critical and historically informed publication versus something else that might not be 100% criticism but introduces art in other ways.
Yeah.
And I think having that print presence really does kind of prove the ambition of the publication in a way. And to say that this kind of long-form print reading is just as important as the visuals that might come in a sleeker, sexier magazine.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the three of us are working much more in kind of a Chinese and English-speaking world with our print and Asia editions, respectively. We don't know very much at all about the Japanese reading public. I wonder if you could share with us what reading habits are like within that market. Maybe what kind of copies you distribute, whether you're mostly newsstand or through museums, and then how you're using that experience now to get out and understand a Chinese and English-speaking reading public.
I would like to talk about in Japan. We still find this magazine in the magazine stands, and it's a very long time because we find magazine in bookstores and kiosks, and it was covered very wide and in the visual. Because in our magazine survived for 65 years as an editor, for certain meaning, we wanted to be successful not only professionally, but we also need to concern about not only to the writer, but also to the readers. So this is our strength as an editor. also focusing to Hong Kong, Taiwan, and China. And hopefully, we can reach a lot more readers who are interested in art or not our readers yet. And hopefully, we can outreach to all these people and make it more successful. But because this is a visual art magazine, so with English, we can expand our coverage to the English world as well. And hopefully this can be an entrance to people who are interested in art, as also we can consider as a bridge to the readers. We did consider about making it bilingual. We can because it will be only half of the magazine that we can read, because people make it, there is half, they have to pay for the other half, which they cannot read. So is like hopefully they can be divided into single language, so English in English, Chinese in Chinese. So I think this is some of them, because it's not, we haven't seen, and for the time being, we in all the ratings are in English or in Japanese, but now I hopefully will see a Chinese version or simplified Chinese. So we are waiting for another new language version of the magazine. So this is also as a challenge to our marketing as well. So we're waiting for the feedback from our readers.
And while we're on the subject of distinct geographies, distinct markets, I want to talk a little bit about the cities that we're based in. LEAP, we're in Beijing, which is the traditional heart of the kind of Chinese art media market. I don't think there's another media organization like ours there anymore. It tends to be very news-oriented right now. Everyone's going digital, WeChat, and sort of up-to-the-minute market reporting. But Randian has always been kind of Shanghai-centered, although you have a presence everywhere. You have editors in New York, Beijing, Berlin, Hong Kong, which is incredibly impressive. But Shanghai, I think, has always been the heart. Kaleidoscope, maybe the organizational heart is Shanghai, but you're also very much in Singapore in terms of where you're printed and published. Why choose these cities to be where you are?
Yeah, I mean, Kaleidoscope, it's as you said, it's based in Singapore only as a company, but the editorial team, I mean, our desks are in Shanghai. So Singapore, it's a great platform because there is like a lot of going on there, and it's like a city in the making. So what's interesting from our point of view about Singapore is this sense of, you know, growing that you have there. And at the same time, being splitted, let's say, between Singapore and Shanghai was strategically occupying two spaces, one in Southeast Asia and one in Far East Asia. But at the same time, we are like building right now, we just published the first issue, but we're like building a networks of like correspondents and contributors and consultants from every key cities in Asia. So Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, but also Manila, Jakarta, etc. So as you know, right now, things in the publishing world are very agile, very fluid. So it still makes sense being based like somewhere. For example, the international edition, we are based in Milano, but it's an only English publication. So the main focus of the distribution is in New York, in Los Angeles. So we're based in Milano, but we could be based in Zurich or in Berlin or in Toronto, like everywhere, you know. I don't know why I say Toronto.
Toronto might be a bit of a stretch.
But you know, it's very agile, and in our particular case, I feel what makes makes Kaleidoscope unique, it's this bridge that we are trying to build in between the two publications. So the Western world, let's call it like this, and the Asian world, and the exchange of contents, and giving the possibility of, you know, many contents of floating from one edition through the other. So yeah, it's very open in that sense. Yeah.
Do you still see value in kind of this traditional approach of having a room full of editors tossing ideas around and laying out spreads and looking at visuals together?
You mean nowadays newspapers, the media is like changing. I don't have to tell you. I mean, people are reporting from war zone via Twitter. It's, you know, it's everything is completely changing. For example, the Kaleidoscope, the editorial team, it's based in Milano, but the magazine it's designed in Munich, Germany. And the Asian edition, it's relies in collaboration between our Munich design studio and a Singaporean studio. So, as I said, it's a network of energies that we're trying to put in together. So yeah, that's it.
Daniel, can you tell us about your office structure and how it works?
Oh, I mean, I think, yeah, in some ways it's the heart is in Shanghai, but in many ways it's probably better to say we're based on the internet, you know. We have office spaces that we don't use.
On your iPhone, let's say. You're based on your iPhone, no? It's...
Yeah, we collaborate so much, just because our editorial team is just spread across the world, that we actually do collaborate intensively online through many, many different, platforms and programs. I think there is, something beautiful about someone being there and just like throwing things, and I guess we just try to find different ways to get around that. As for the Shanghai issue, I guess that's the real thing was because we were there. I think that was the simplest answer. And also, I think this is in 2010, I think, we noticed something that where a lot of things were happening in Shanghai. Certainly at that point, without a doubt, Beijing was the center of the Chinese art world. But I think because a lot of the media were based in, the art-related media were based in Beijing that weren't really paying attention so much to Shanghai at a certain point, I think we just felt, okay, well, why don't we write about this? Yeah. But to be totally honest, 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, I felt the art world in Shanghai was in a slump, it seemed like nothing was happening. I wanted to move, And then who knew, like all of a sudden all these museums popped up and, it seems like a complete change just within 2 years. So, it's partly happenstance,
It's very true. Museums in China are like a bad infection. They just pop up wherever you don't want them. And now you have a reason to stay there for a longer time. I've been kind of building up larger questions for the translation issues. We have a little bit more time in these quiet moments. So a two-part question for you. First of all, what does your team look like in Japan? How is your editorial spread across the country? Are you working sort of in a desk system like us, or are you on your phone like Randian? And second of all, why choose Hong Kong to launch your international issues? I know you're printing in Shenzhen and editing in Hong Kong, I think. So how does it all work?
For our editorial team, we have an English team, and we have a Japanese editorial team. So we try to have the same editorial visual as Japan. So all the writing in English and the writings and the layout will be designed the same. So in Hong Kong, we have a Hong Kong editor and also translators, and also we have design team in Hong Kong to fit in for the readers. So one task is we try to translate everything together. We try to translate English to Chinese and also to understand the Japanese as well. So why we choose Hong Kong, because with this time, because it was a joint published with the museum, so we would like, it's like a subgroup JP, Hong Kong as in a published company. So there is a lot of working together, and hopefully in the future we are looking for the Chinese market, opening up the Chinese market. China markets. So we try to also to work with the Hong Kong publishing companies, like to make art magazine in Hong Kong, and using the Japanese team as well. So it will make work much smoother and faster. And it's only about that's the issue was raised about less than a year ago, and everything goes very smooth. And we started the editorial work around November, and the first issue was finished by March. So this is a sudden happening to us. So actually is I hopefully art magazine can again come back into the very public market very soon.
Great. We're getting a little bit close to our time limit here, so I want to throw out what might be a dangerously Obristian concluding question, which is, what is the future of media?
What is the future of media?
Art media.
Oh. Art media. Well, one, disastrous scenario would be like everything turns into press releases, or like souped up press releases, which would be terrible, I think. I think in some ways the art world has, as it is right now, has enough of a structure to maintain a certain quality of media, at least, about a certain art discourse. Partly, mainly, for me, I think perhaps is mainly because art is not something that's automatically, you can judge by use value. You can not judge it by a functional, you need some sort of interpretation, you need a sort of analysis. And for that to happen simply and sheerly through press releases is completely not credible, And maybe this is a more art critical take on it. So I think there's always this need within, the art world. I guess the specific questions of how this is configured within, as a magazine, as getting writers together, how they're paid, whether they're paid enough, well, that's a question I really don't, I don't know. I don't know. Are we going to see a BuzzFeed type of situation? This writer is sponsored by, I shouldn't mention a gallery here, but, so yeah.
But do you have any hopes or aspirations? Maybe let's not look at it in terms of print is dying, the industry is dying, no one's buying ads, no one's reading magazines, but instead, what can we do that's more exciting? What are the goals to work towards? How can we make what we do more interesting?
I think maybe for issue is, maybe it's not that we have problems within the art world supporting stuff. I think really it's to what degree we want to advance particular intellectual debates, perhaps, in a way lead certain intellectual debates to a degree that resonates outside the art world, that's one. Or two would be how this could, in particularly places like China, art media can play a role in really broadening the audience of art. I think particularly in Asia, maybe a little bit more than Europe, there's perhaps more need for that. Do I see it immediately? I'm raising questions more than I'm answering them. I don't know. I hope that this is possible, and I believe it is possible. That's why I'm doing this. Otherwise I'll just stop.
Alessio, what do you want to do?
Because that was a difficult one, but I feel that the future of media, wow,
It's okay. We're not at DLD. You can be a little bit.
The future of media, I think it's. I mean, I'm speaking from the angle of Kaleidoscope. So I would say that the future of media is playing with formats. So magazines are like not magazines anymore. Kaleidoscope, I feel that is, yes, it's a physical magazine, but at the same time it's like an open platform for ideas, a global platform for ideas that can take many forms. So it could be a magazine, it could be a digital app, it could be a moment like this one. Could be like an art fair. You have like Freeze magazine that launched like a fair. You have like, you know, that's the future of media, playing with different formats and multitasking and trying to survive in a smart way. So that's what I think.
はい。2つ
So there is two. It's about in 1980s. So now we can see a lot of things going on in the world, and also we see we are like a focus by a lot of magazines, museums, and auction going on around the world. So we had interviewed a lot of people because we would like to continue as an art magazine because this is a heritage for us. This is a food ground for us. I hope that we can continue the work and the efficiency of as a magazine. Even we still have some function that features that internet cannot serve because in nowadays we can feel like that. But on the other hand, as a business, I think the business world is getting more tougher, and like magazine media is like a brand already. So nowadays we can get all the information from the smartphone because a lot of people not reading, but they're reading their smartphone. So hopefully we can start from the Japanese version in the internet format, and hopefully we can open up smartphone version to the other part of the world with a magazine. Then we extend to the smartphone internet market. So as thinking of an art media or a magazine or site but don't think it too complicated. Don't make it too complicated. It's how are you going to make good use of the information, and how we are going to keep the growth of our magazine. I think for now, I'm not sure whether we can go smooth as we expect, but everything is moving very fast.
There you have it. Don't make it too complicated, keep it simple. Media as a museum without walls, institution without walls, and keep publishing strong criticism. There you have 3 fantastic reasons to keep reading and making magazines right there. Can we take questions from the audience for 5 minutes or so?
I'm from Australia, so I guess that's why I'm asking this question. But where do you guys see, I guess, your businesses in terms of the Australian market? Because I guess we are part of the Asia Pacific, and I just wonder if that market is of any interest to you guys.
Randian is kind of a half Australian, half Chinese love child, so maybe you guys can...
Yeah, actually, one of the co-founders is actually kind of Australian. He's born in Australia. No, I mean, we try to pay attention. I guess it's a tyranny of geography, as always, with Australia. It's far. It's kind of, we kind of forget about it. But there are definitely things that we pay attention to. The APT, Asia Pacific Triennial in Queensland, whenever there are biennials in Sydney. And of course, different things like Mona in Tasmania. I don't know how. I mean, we just simply, our center of our focus is more East Asia, Northeast Asia. So it's just a question that we haven't been able to devote that. I mean, but they're great Australian magazines. I think that's my answer.
And we have a large number of contributors in Australia. I think we covered 6 exhibitions or artists just in our last issue alone. But it's very hard to buy us there because the boat goes really slowly from Beijing to Australia. And then once it gets there, it has to take a truck to these cities that are like days apart. So I know our readers in Australia typically get the magazine like 2 or 3 months late, which is a real bummer, but it's just not cost effective to do much more unless we were to actually print there.
Yes, of course. I mean, it's Kaleidoscope Asia. It's going to be, the focus is Asia Pacific. So in the first issue, there wasn't any Australian related content, but I'm sure there will be. So yeah, that's my answer. Of course. And New Zealand too. And so, yeah.
Mike's coming.
I wanted to ask about distribution because there's less and less bookstores. Every place is closing down. Have you thought maybe other unusual ways to put them in department stores or new ways to expose the world to it? Because there's very few bookstores left. Anyway, in the States I'm talking about. And I just thought it's important to think of new ways to distribute the art magazines.
May I ask?
Please.
Okay, for example, we just like 2 days ago, on the occasion of Art Basel, we launched an iPad and iPhone edition. So that's a way, that's maybe like, a stupid answer, but that's a way to get Kaleidoscope like everywhere, anytime, and whenever you want. So that's a way of like distribution that for sure is keeping the traditional newsstand bookshop thing. So yeah.
The one thing is how are you going to the big bookstores? Because in art magazine, yes, we can sell it internationally, so it is not something that people will walk and pick it up. So hopefully we can have some regular readers that can subscribe from us. So, and of course, art magazine is much more expensive than regular magazines. So you can get it from like events like this. So if we put it in the bookshop or bookstores, so they have to go out and buy. So this is an
Absolutely, it's always a very specific content model for art, and I think that's what really matters is maybe always finding new readers, but really being able to be attached to the core infrastructure of art, galleries, museums, art fairs, biennials. Here we are. So we have to clear the room now. A big thank you to all of our panelists for being here, taking time on this very busy last day. You can grab a copy of Leap on the way out here, and please visit all of our media booths just behind here. on your way home. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.